Welcome to Smart Money with Chris Swartz. Living life on your terms requires more than income. Smart Money connects you with the people, tools, and strategies that turn income into freedom. Welcome to Smart Money, everyone. Today I'm joined by Deidre Quinn with eXp Realty, a relationship-driven real estate agent who's built her business almost entirely on referrals and repeat business. She's been serving buyers and sellers across the greater Philadelphia area and the Poconos for the last 20 years. She also brings the perspective of a real estate investor, which gives her an added layer of insight when it comes to making market decisions. What stands out is how she operates and her strong attention to detail, consistent follow-through, and a real focus on her clients. She is also the host of the Pending and Trending podcast with Deidre Quinn. Deidre, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. There's so much going on right now in the world, in the real estate market. So to have a top performing real estate agent and investor on Smart Money, super exciting. So let's, kind of dive into it here.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I guess, Deidre, first, before we really get into all that, tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, what attracted you to real estate, and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so gosh, Chris, it's been a long time, but I was in corporate America previously. The job that I was doing started to feel negative. I was investigating employee theft and firing employees for stealing, to sum it up. I really just wanted something positive, and I always had a love for real estate, and it was on my bucket list. And something just that energized me always. So I got into real estate, and it was the best thing I ever did. I don't feel like I go to work every day. I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. And really what it is, it's a way to help other people build generational wealth. And I love being part of their journey so much that it's hard for me. I have a team now, and it's hard for me to give up different steps to my team because I want to be there seeing the property. I want to be at the closing. I want to I want to do everything because I just love being part of their journey.
Nice. And it shows in just your passion right there. And, as you talk about it, I can almost, feel it coming through here. I think that's what people don't realize when they think about real estate is they think about the house and the process, but there's really a difference. I've been in the lending world for 20 plus years in working with a real estate agent who really cares about the people. Having worked with you on some transactions, what sets you apart is you really do love the whole process. Like you said, you don't feel like you're going to work every day, which is pretty awesome.
It really is. It really is. To me, it's just, I love doing what I do. And I love helping people through the process.
Now, have you always loved what you do? I know there's a lot of ups and downs in real estate. So let's kind of talk about some of the ebbs and flows that you see in the market and how you help your clients navigate that over the years.
Yeah. So, I said I love what I do. I didn't say it was easy. There's a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of times we have to pivot and do something different. And really knowing the market that you're in and what you're doing and how to pivot is super important to help your clients adjust to what's happening in the market.
Yeah, I think that's really the key is learning and knowing how to pivot, which especially right now we're having, some, fluctuations in the market, and you really need to be on top of that and ready to pivot. So one of the keys there is making sure that you're nimble, right? You can never get comfortable in real estate.
No, you should never get comfortable, and you always do want to pivot. But I think that's one of the things, sometimes people are just waiting for that right moment to say, okay, well, is this the right time to buy real estate? And really it's looking at the market and strategizing about that transaction and the best way to do it. And the time is really when you're ready and you want to get into the market and start building that generational wealth sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And I think that's also another key is when you're ready. People often ask is now a great time to buy? Where are interest rates? What's going on with home value? And I really do think that when you're looking at it, it's really the right time to buy is when it's right for you and when you can afford it, right?
Yes, and don't wait too long.
Don't wait too long. So yeah, let's talk about that. If somebody's thinking about buying real estate and they do have that question, there's a lot of uncertainty in different areas of the market, the world, the global economy. What'd you say to them if they're thinking about buying?
So real estate appreciates, right? Over time, if you look at real estate historically, it appreciates. So if you wait, it continues to appreciate and you're flushing money down the toilet renting, and then that real estate keeps going up. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I look back on my life and say, "Oh goodness, I could have bought that for this," or I should have bought five of those, right?
Right.
And to give you just an example of that, you know, I've done a lot of work in the 19147 in the Philadelphia area specifically. So I'm going to use an example specifically there. And I love this example because I was in the business back in 2004 and I showed this house and it sold for 292,500.
Okay.
In 2014, wouldn't you like to, in 19147 in the Queen
Yeah.
Village area, to buy a house right now for
Like you said,
292,500?
give me five of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Give me five of them. And then in May of 2014, I saw that same house back on the market. It ended up selling for 525,000. Okay, so
Wow.
that's a 10-year span. And then in 2019, I listed the same house and represented the seller, and we sold it for 630,000. And then in November of 2022, it sold again for 650,000. So clearly, real estate appreciates over time.
Yeah.
Would you rather get in when it was 292,000, or do you want to get in now when it's well over that 650 mark that it was in 2022? My advice would be when you're going to buy a house, it's always like people are uncertain, they're scared, like afraid. They're like, okay, well, you know, what payments can I make? Like, am I gonna like be able to make the payment? And you're always kind of stretching yourself, right? And my thought on that is that you stretch yourself, maybe you cut back on certain things, certain habits, whether that's Starbucks or whether that's going out to dinner 2 nights a week. You cut down to going out to dinner 1 night a week, or whatever you have to do to make that stretch happen. You partner with a strong lender that's going to really help you with your estimate of closing costs and know what your payments are going to be on a monthly basis, so you know that you can do it. And you make that leap, because once you make that first leap and you start building equity in your own home, you can then take that equity, you sell your home, and you buy your next step up home, or you can take that equity and you can buy an investment property that's going to start returning cash flow to you.
That makes sense. And I know your business is built around helping people build generational wealth, right?
That's right. And there's a lot of high income earners that your money gets tied up. You have to have that cash flow. So the first thing I would say is buy that primary residence and stop renting, and then build that equity. And once you're there, start using that equity to purchase properties or invest in other real estate vehicles that are going to give you cash flow.
Examples of other real estate vehicles that you would see people invest in.
Honestly, Chris, I started a podcast a little over a year ago, and
Yep.
I wish I knew 15 years ago all the information that I know now, because there's so many ways that you can invest in real estate, whether you want to do it actively or whether you want to do it passively. And I've had so many amazing guests on there that have like just they wow me with what they're doing. It's just exciting to me. So, you know, you can buy a rental property,
Okay.
right? You
Sure.
can buy a rental property and then you can have tenants, and then you're going to be getting cash flow from that. So that would be one way.
Yep.
You can invest more passively. There's people that investment groups that you can do land banking, you can do workforce housing, you can do storage units, you can invest in, you know, areas that are outside of the US as well. There's just so many different avenues that you can invest that it's like mind opening, and it's really to dig into some of those different things. That the sky's the limit. If you really strategize and do that, you can really start building your financial wealth and your cash flow.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing to me about real estate. And there's no one way to do it, right? It's not that you have to go out and buy single family rentals and get 100 of them, or buy multifamily. And people say, oh, it's more leverage, there's more cash flow in multifamily. There's really so many different ways that you can do it. And you and I have been talking, offline a little bit about other opportunities that I never thought about when I investing in other countries. We were talking about, you had somebody on your podcast investing in Panama. Like, these are just
Yeah.
opportunities that exist that people don't think about, right? And especially now we're in more of a global economy, right? Where we can easily get access to information, travel places easily. There's so many different ways that we can invest and so many tools out there. Like you said, if you want to just be passive and invest in a fund, there's ways that you can just get involved in a fund. So, I mean, with real estate, you really have so many options. And, it's funny as you look at most of the wealth in this country, a lot of it is real estate, right? Even if you're just a homeowner, most of your net worth is probably in home equity, right?
Yes, and that is the case with a lot of people. And the key then would be to, okay, well, let's use some of that equity to build that wealth and generate cash flow.
With that, so there are so many ways, but I like what you said in the beginning. You love what you do, but you never said it was easy. The same thing with real estate investing, right? There's so many different ways, but I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think you're sitting here saying, hey, it's easy, just go throw some money at it. So I want to talk about what are mistakes that cost people money in real estate?
I'm going to give you a really recent example. Okay. So
Okay.
you do not connect with somebody that is local in the area, right? So if
Hmm.
I'm going to go invest someplace else, I'm going to use the real estate professionals that know that location. And I am going to find the one that I'm going to work with, and I'm going to use them to advise me and to help me through that process. And I think that that's really important. And I think in this environment, sometimes people think that they can do it on their own. Oh, well, there's AI and I can just ask it questions and I can do this. Well, use a trusted professional. And I have a transaction that literally I just went through with someone. They chose me as a listing agent. I helped them in another area where they don't do business. They happen to be licensed, but they don't focus on that area. And they were told by somebody else and under the impression that they were going to sell their house $100,000, more than $100,000 less than what we actually sold it for. Now, this house has closed. They were like, thank you so much. I so appreciate, and I'm so glad. Their exact words, wow, this could be a case study because I could have used somebody that didn't know the area and not didn't have the expertise in that area, and it would have been a difference of over 100 and probably $25,000, which
Yeah.
is very costly, right? So
Yeah. No, I
use
think I don't know what the old saying is, like penny wise, dollar foolish, or
absolutely
it's there's so much information. Sometimes you can get in your own way with it.
use somebody that is an expert in that area. So that would be number one. Number two, don't wait. If you look at most real estate over time, like the example that I gave you, it appreciates.
Yep.
So the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to be. And if you go back, however, like look at any charts, real estate typically appreciates. The other thing I would say is make sure that your financing is structured appropriately, right? So there was a time where people were doing first loans and second loans and over financing. And then if they were in a position that they wanted to sell, they were maxed out and it was difficult to get out of the properties. So make
Right.
sure that your financing makes sense and talk to your trusted mortgage advisor to structure that transaction to make sure that that's appropriate. And then when you own the property, make smart decisions on your improvements and don't over improve it to a point that you're never going to get the funds back out. Focus on the areas that make sense. If you put a new kitchen in, that's going to be a likely a good return. And then think of all those things that you do to a home and don't over improve it.
That's a great point as well. So let's talk about that. So a lot of people know, okay, the kitchen's a great spot to put some money. Let's talk about like a couple. Can we give like three more examples of renovations that you can do to a home that you really get a nice return on your investment? And maybe one or two examples where you're not going to get such a great return?
So I would say kitchen and baths.
Okay.
Those are great places to get returns. Every area is going to be a little bit different. However, I would say not every area welcomes, say, solar panels. So if you put solar panels on your roof, and then whether they're leased or they're owned, or if there's solar panels in the yard, not everybody wants those, right? So people think, oh, like this is a great. Now, in some ways, it's great because of the environment, and you're actually then, in some ways, getting paid for your electricity, sometimes having no electric bill. However, not everybody wants the solar panels in their yard. So you just want to think about the things that you do. If you're going to be putting your property on the market and you want to do something that is inexpensive, the top thing I would say is paint the property, have it
Okay.
freshly painted, and you know, have it freshly painted a neutral color
Okay.
because that appeals to more, but it just gives it that fresh pop.
Yeah, and what about some things where you see people spend money that they think is a good idea and it's going to drive value, but may not be the best ROI?
Well, so I mentioned the solar panels. I think it's location specific. I think in some locations, like say in the Poconos, if you put a hot tub in, people love hot tubs. If in the city, if you put a roof deck on, like people love the idea of a roof deck.
Yeah,
And those things, they do drive some value. Those things drive value as far as that goes. However, if you're going to take a two-bedroom home and you're going to expand it and just make it one large bedroom, I've actually, I see people do that, and that's
right.
great for your maybe the way that you want to live. However, in that case, you're typically devaluing the property because now it's a one bedroom instead of a two bedroom.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like there's a little bit of a mix here, but the big ones that are consistent across all markets are probably kitchens, bathrooms, simple, easy things we can do just to get ready for market. Just paint the house a neutral color, right?
That's right.
Yeah. But to kind of pivot, like for your journey yourself, I mean, you're not only a real estate agent, right? For the last 20 plus years, you invest in real estate.
I do. Yes, I do. The rental properties that provide you with cash flow, I think are great. I'm always looking for other ways to do that and to leverage the properties that you have to make your next purchase.
You see a lot of like high net worth people and sometimes they're still broke. I think real estate is a good way. It's almost like an insurance policy, it's like you're forced to pay the mortgage if you buy something and you invest and you figure it out and then you look back and all of a sudden the property went up $100,000 and maybe in other areas of your life you overspend and you're not managing the cash flow the best. But I mean, what do you think about real estate for people in that position that are high earners, they're not able to hang on to it or have that high net worth?
It's a great way to, certainly not the only way, but it can be a great way if you strategize to generate cash flow on a regular basis. So, sure, you can make income, that income, and then you put money into a 401k, you put money into stocks, and then you're paying your bills. However, real wealth then comes from building those assets at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. So, and that's been in my life personally, same situation where you buy some real estate and it's not always, I like to tell people it's not always about an investment, right? Sometimes it's the home that you're going to raise your kids and your family in. Maybe it's your first home. You're going to have some roommates move in. I mean, I bought my first home when I was 21 just because I had some people that were, giving me some good advice and I didn't really need a three-bedroom house at that time, but it was a nice little row home and grabbed a couple of roommates, and we all chipped in. We had some of the probably best times of my life in that house. And then as life transitions, we boot the roommates out, and you start your family. And that home at that time, I wasn't looking at it as just let me just invest. I wanted a place that was mine, that I owned. And I think that's really the neat part about real estate is it's a little bit of both, at least when you buy something that you're owner occupying, kind of gives you both
Yeah,
perspectives.
we just had somebody that they were buying their first place and they purchased a duplex and they're going to live in one of those units until they grow out of that unit. And then they're going to end up renting both of those units
Exactly.
and
Yep.
then buying something else. And I'm like, wow, how smart are they? So, you know what? They're going to live in a small unit now. They're going to rent the other unit. And then they're going to use that to leverage and purchase their next property, which that's brilliant. And there's not just one way, there's so many different ways to do it. I think it's really just about strategizing on what's right for you.
One of the other things I want to get into that I know you do is, I'm all about lifestyle. We love the beach. We have a place at the beach, and I know you really focus on the Poconos, right? So talking about like that market and if you already own a home but you're thinking of a second home or you want that like lifestyle change.
So I think that there's kind of been a bit of a mindset shift since COVID. Now I have had a Pocono property for close to 30 years. Since COVID, there's been a mindset shift. I feel like people appreciate their second place more than they did even before COVID. I feel like that kind of like brought a rebirth perhaps to the Poconos itself. For me, when I used to go to the Poconos, I would get there and it would just be like, like, you know what? Like, it's just like a
That's a
place
fresh
to
air, literally.
yeah, absolutely. It is a breath of fresh air and certainly was. And then some time ago, it just happened organically. And our repeat clients were buying second homes and it just happened organically. We started helping them too. Now it's a mix of people that have short-term homes or want to get into the STR, the short-term rental, Airbnb, VRBO, short-term rental business. So it's a mix of investors and second home owners.
And let me talk about that too, because I know a lot of people think about buying that second home and they're like, oh, well, if we're not there, we're going to rent it out. And you really need to be careful and you need to make sure you're working with a professional that knows the area. Specifically, I know, from talking to many people, and Deidre, you know this as well, not every area allows for that second home to be rented out as a STR or short-term rental, right? You have to be really careful with that.
It used to be that it wasn't a big deal and people would just, the Poconos has always, as long as I can remember, had a strong short-term rental market, even though it wasn't really called that, right?
Right.
However, then it became like such a buzz, right? Since COVID and became such a buzz and everyone started doing it that, all these communities then were overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed with all of the people using the amenities. They were overwhelmed with houses just having loads of people. The septics are being overwhelmed. The water flow is being overwhelmed. I mean,
Wow.
all of a sudden it was, and then, you have your second homeowner and your homeowners that live there year round going like, oh, like
What's
this
going
is
on
where I'm
here?
at for peace and quiet. And now they have all these like people like next to
Now
me. I'm
Deidre's here. What happened? And
yeah,
Chris.
so what happened really then is that these communities had to create task force to then say, okay, well, let's come up with some rules and let's come up with some regulations and it runs the gamut. There's some communities that say, you can't rent for under a 30-day period. And then there's some communities that say you can short-term rent, but this is how much it's going to cost because this is taxing to our community resources. So it's completely different in every community and it's ever changing. So it's really important to work with somebody wherever you're going to buy that stays on top of all those regulations and really helps you dig in to make sure that you're getting what you want out of the property you're buying.
Love it. Yeah, it definitely comes down to there's a lot of ways to invest in real estate. There's also a lot of ways to make mistakes, right? So you got to make sure you're working with professionals that really know what they're doing in the market that you're doing, not just, oh, I know, so and so that's a realtor and they can help me in a market that they're completely unfamiliar with. So, all right, well, one of the other things with everything going on, I think, we'd be missing the mark here if we didn't talk a little AI, Deidre. How do you see, you have to, like everywhere you go, you got to talk about AI, right? So we're going to talk about it in relationship to real estate. So how do you see AI, impacting the markets? What changes are coming into your world as a result of AI and how is that impacting the real estate market?
So many things that it's changing in some ways. However, I mean, I don't know. When I call someplace, it makes me absolutely nuts when AI is answering my call. And I have to tell them, speak to our agent, speak to our representative. Okay, so I feel like the personal relationship, I want to work with a bank or a lender or a real estate agent that's going to answer the phone, talk to me, answer my questions. And it's really about relationships. Our business has always been about relationships, and AI can't replace those relationships. In the Dublin airport, right? I sit down to have a bite to eat and I have to order my food on a QR code. Over comes
Yes.
a robot to deliver my food, and then I have to take my food off the robot. Like, okay, so I mean, sure, that, there's certain things that
Right.
AI is going to replace. It can't replace the relationships. It can't replace the real guidance that a true professional real estate agent or lender give to their clients and helping them dig into the information and really helping them navigate their journey. And it can't replace that. I don't see it going away. I think that relationships are important, and that's what my business is based on. I think it's the most important piece. And sure, can I click a button to go see a property and have somebody there run and show it to me in an hour or 2 hours? Yes. However, am I choosing that person as the trusted advisor that I want to work with? That's probably not by choice.
And I would agree. I'm the same way. Just that personal relationship, I feel like is so important when you're dealing with such big financial transaction. You can use AI along the way to make our, job easier or to get access to some information. But at the end of the day, having that professional by your side to evaluate the information or maybe utilizing some of those tools is the most helpful thing that you're going to have in the process. It's not going to be the AI widget that helped you do something in the process.
That's right.
Well, Deidre, so much good information here. I mean, what I always like to do is talk about just like one big takeaway. What's like one key insight or action you would share with the audience that could help change or shape their financial future?
I would say income pays your bills, assets change your life. If you don't currently own your home, if you're currently renting, I would recommend buying and don't wait. And if you do own your home, then consider investing in something that provides cash flow.
I love it. Sweet, short and sweet, very easy to execute. Deidre, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And you are doing so many things. I know we didn't have enough time in the show, but you're doing a TV show on American Dream TV, right? You have the podcast Pending and Trending with Deidre Quinn. So many big things that you're doing. What is the best way? How can people connect with you? Where can they find you?
They can always go to my website. It's deidrequinn.com, and that's DeidreQuinn.com. But I am all over social media. All you have to do is plug me in. My podcast is Pending and Trending, and I highly recommend just take a look at those episodes. If you type in Pending and Trending podcast, it will come up, and it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify. And listen to some of the episodes. You can really learn so much about different ways that you can build your generational wealth. No strings attached. All you have to do is listen and learn. The information is there. So I highly recommend that you do that.
Thank you. There's so much value, so many great episodes on there. I was listening to the one, like I mentioned earlier, about investing in Panama. So make sure you check out the podcast with Deidre Quinn, Pending and Trending, and follow her on social. And if you got something out of this episode today, we just ask that you like and share it with somebody that you know that can make an impact. And I just want to thank you for listening. Chris Swartz with Smart Money. We'll see you next time. Follow Smart Money with Chris Swartz for more conversations on building wealth with purpose. And if you found value in this episode, share it with someone you know who can benefit, because real wealth is life on your terms.